What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be explaining the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. For those of you who don't know, Five Nights at Freddy's is an indie horror game series created by game developer Scott Cawthon, and has probably become one of the most popular and most successful horror franchises ever. In fact, so much so that it now has more than a dozen books about it, and now it has a freaking movie about it. Now, what makes Five Nights at Freddy's so popular? Well, one of the main reasons is its lore. You see, as you play through the games, it becomes apparent that there is a story, and many people have devoted time into trying to figure out what it is. And in today's video, I will be presenting what I believe to be the story of the series. Not only that, but I'm making this video to serve as a kind of introduction for people who are new to the series. Now, I've been wanting to make a video on this for a while now, and I'm so glad to be finally getting to it. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. The story of Five Nights at Freddy's begins sometime in the late 1970s in the town of Hurricane, Utah, with two entrepreneurs named Henry Emily and William Afton. Henry and William were both best friends, and they shared a passion in robotics and technology and stuff like that. They also each had families. William had two sons. His oldest son was named Michael, and his youngest son was named Evan, and he had a daughter named Elizabeth. Henry, on the other hand, only had one child, a daughter named Charlotte, but most people refer to her by her nickname, Charlie. Now, I said William's youngest son's name is Evan, however, his real name is never mentioned in any of the games or anywhere in the franchise. So for this video, I'm using the name Evan as a placeholder name for William's youngest son. Just wanted to clarify that real quick, let's continue. One day, Henry and William decide to partner up and they started a business, specifically a family entertainment restaurant similar to that of Chuck E. Cheese called Fredbear's Family Diner. And just like Chuck E. Cheese, it featured two animatronic performers, a yellow bear named Fredbear and a yellow rabbit named Spring Bonnie. Now, these animatronics were not ordinary animatronics. These were special animatronics invented by Henry and William they called Springlock suits. These suits could function both as working animatronics and as wearable costumes that employees could wear. To set a suit to suit mode, an employee would insert and wind a hand crank on the back of the animatronic to coil up devices on the suit called spring locks. This caused the animatronic parts inside the suit to lock around the sides, making room for a person to wear it. This allowed kids to see the same animatronic performing on stage, step off the stage, and play with them. During the early stages of the restaurant, when it was just Henry and William operating everything, they would every so often put on the suits and interact and play with the kids. Henry would put on the Fredbear suit, while William would put on the Spring Bonnie suit. There was, however, an issue with Springlock suits. If the spring locks were touched, bumped, or met with any kind of moisture, this could result in a spring lock failure, where the spring locks loosen and all of the animatronic parts inside the suit snap back into place. And if an employee was wearing a spring lock suit when this occurred, all of the animatronic parts would impale them from all sides, resulting in a very painful death. Despite this danger though, spring lock suits were utilized by them. And if a spring lock failure did occur, employees were instructed to head to a designated safe room where they could bleed out as to not ruin the customer's experience. Fredbear's Family Diner became a massive success, and with that, in 1983, Henry and William decided to expand with a company they created called Fazbear Entertainment, and they opened up a second location called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, featuring a new cast of characters. This time, a brown bear named Freddy Fazbear, a purple or blue bunny named Bonnie, a yellow chicken named Chica, and my personal favorite, Foxy the Pirate Fox. Now, with the opening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, William became bogged down with work, and he was unable to keep an eye on his kids at home, especially his youngest son Evan, who was too young to be left alone. So William took a Fredbear plushie, and he put a camera and a walkie-talkie in it, and gave it to Evan so he could keep an eye on him and talk to him through the plush. He also tasked his oldest son Michael to babysit him while he was at work. However, Michael was not the best brother. He would constantly find ways to torment Evan at home. As we see in the minigames from Five Nights at Freddy's 4, Evan seems to have developed a fear of the animatronic characters that his father had helped build. So Michael would constantly exploit this by wearing a Foxy mask, and he would jump out at him, scaring him to the point of crying. Now, William was too busy at work to deal with Michael's behavior, so he attempted to assure Evan that everything would be fine and that tomorrow was another day. One day, Michael and his friends decided to play a cruel prank on Evan at his birthday party, which was being hosted at Fredbear's. Michael and his friends gathered around Evan wearing masks of all the characters. They then picked him up and carried him over to the stage where the Fredbear and Spring Bonnie animatronics were performing. Michael then began to count to 3, and they all shoved him into Fredbear's mouth. Michael and his friends find this funny and begin to laugh, until Fredbear's mouth clamps down, crushing Evan's head. This incident would become known as the Bite of '83. Evan was then presumably rushed to the hospital. In the final Five Nights at Freddy's 4 minigame, we see Michael apologizing to Evan for the incident. Then we see the Fredbear plush speak to Evan. This is obviously William talking to his son through the plush. William tells Evan that he is broken and that he will put him back together. This is probably William attempting to comfort his son. Afterward, Evan passed away. Sometime after the bite, we learned that the Springlot suits were deemed unsafe by Fazbear Entertainment, and they were retired and stored at the second location, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and Fredbear's Family Diner was shut down. Now, I believe it's around this time that William, through some means, discovered that his son's spirit was possessing the Fredbear animatronic. The implications of this were huge, and he wanted to know more. So he built a underground facility below his house where he could study alone without being disturbed and forbid any of his children from going down there. If William could determine exactly how his son's spirit began to possess the Fredbear animatronic, then maybe he could find a way to revive his son, or whatever he meant when he said, "I will put you back together." But in order to do so, he would need the death of another child to replicate what happened.
So William came up with a plan. He started his own robotics company called Afton Robotics and opened a circus-themed restaurant called Circus Baby's Pizza World, which featured his own line of special animatronics he called the Funtime animatronics. Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, Ballora, and most notably, Circus Baby. These animatronics were super advanced, but they had a dark side to them. They were designed to capture and kill children. Circus Baby was specifically programmed to constantly count how many children were in a room, and when she only counted one, she would lure that child to her so she could shoot out a metal arm out of her stomach and pull that child into her stomach cavity, killing the child. And if successful, that child's spirit would begin to possess her, which would allow William to study further about possession and what exactly happened to his son. However, a problem quickly arose. William's daughter Elizabeth fell in love with Circus Baby, probably because she could dispense ice cream.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her? Daddy, you let the other children go see her. Why won't you let me go? Daddy, just once let me go play with her. She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me?
William didn't want her to die, so he would constantly tell Elizabeth to stay away from Baby. However, Elizabeth did not listen. On the opening day of Circus Baby's Pizza World, in the room where Circus Baby was, kids began to leave the room for some reason until Elizabeth was the only one in the room. And as we see in a minigame from Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, Circus Baby, only counting one child in the room, dispensed an ice cream cone, and Elizabeth began to approach her until suddenly, Baby's stomach opened up and the arm launched out and grabbed Elizabeth and pulled her into her stomach cavity, killing her. We learned in the series that Circus Baby's Pizza World was closed due to a gas leak, which was clearly a cover-up for the death of Elizabeth. This presumably devastated William, but despite the death of his daughter, his plan worked. Elizabeth was now possessing Circus Baby. William moved Circus Baby and the rest of the Funtime animatronics into his underground facility where he could study more about what happened. Now, shortly after this, Henry learned about what happened to Elizabeth and what the true purpose of the Funtime animatronics was. This probably disturbed Henry so much that he kicked William out of Fazbear Entertainment, the company that they had both created. This probably really pissed William off, and Henry became paranoid over the safety of his daughter and of the kids who visited Freddy's, because, William was targeting kids. So to make sure nothing happened, Henry built an animatronic called the Security Puppet, a big robotic puppet that hanged from strings attached to rails on the ceiling with the purpose of keeping an eye and protecting the children at Freddy's. One night at a local bar, William was drinking a little too much while having angry thoughts about Henry and how he kicked him out. William then got kicked out of the bar for some reason, so he drove home in a drunken rage. As we see in a Five Nights at Freddy's 2 minigame, as William is driving home, he passed by Freddy's, where he sees Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked outside. William sees this as an opportunity to get back at Henry for kicking him out of the company that they both started, so William got out of his car and murdered Charlie and hid her body in an alley and drove away. Now you're probably wondering, wasn't Henry's security puppet supposed to protect the kids at Freddy's and stop William? Well, as we see in the security puppet minigame from Five Nights at Freddy's 6, also known as Pizzeria Simulator, some bullies placed a heavy object on the puppet's box so it would be unable to help, and they bullied Charlie and locked her outside. The puppet eventually broke free, but by then, it was too late. It went outside and into the alley to find Charlie's lifeless body. With the rain pouring, the puppet began to malfunction, so it did the only thing it could do. It lay beside Charlie's body, and Charlie's spirit began to possess the puppet. Charlie's body would eventually be discovered in the alley. Henry probably had suspicions about William, however, there was no evidence to link him back to the crime, so William got away with murder. Charlie's death devastated Henry, so much so that Henry kept to himself for a while. In Five Nights at Freddy's 6, there is a minigame called Midnight Motorist. And in this minigame, there is a hidden section where you play as this orange person who drives a purple car. This orange person is most likely William Afton, and what we are seeing in this minigame is what happened after he murdered Charlie that night. First, William stops by a dirt mound, which is very likely his son's grave. He then stops at a place called Junior's, which is likely the bar that he was kicked out of, since he stopped at the door by someone who tells him, "Come on, you know you can't be here, don't make this more difficult than it has to be." William finally arrives home and walks through the door. Here we see someone on the couch watching TV. This could be William's wife or just a babysitter that was hired to keep an eye on Michael while William was away. The person tells William to leave him alone tonight, he had a rough day. They are presumably referring to Michael. However, William ignores them and walks up to the door to Michael's room and pounds on the door and yells to let him in. However, there is no response. William then walks around back to find the window to Michael's room broken and footsteps leading from it, and animatronic footprints outside the window. William then says he ran off to that place again, he will be sorry when he gets back. Now, what happened here? Well, to understand that, we need to backtrack. I believe after Elizabeth disappeared, Michael wanted to figure out what happened to her, so every night, Michael would run away from home so he could look for her, and that place is the now closed down Circus Baby's Pizza World, where Elizabeth was last seen. William didn't want Michael poking around there, so William placed an old animatronic costume outside of his room as a kind of scarecrow to scare Michael into not running away, and it also may have functioned as some kind of surveillance device like the Fredbear plush. For a while, the scarecrow worked, and Michael would be too scared to attempt running away. However, on this particular night, Michael decided to be brave and he broke through his window and destroyed the scarecrow, leaving the animatronic footprints outside. So now William needed a new way to prevent Michael from running away. While William was studying possession, he invented devices that could cause people to hallucinate. So for example, with these hallucination devices, you could cause someone to see this cute little plushie as a terrifying monster creature. William decided to use these hallucination devices on Michael to scare him into not running away. William moved Michael into a new room and placed mannequins all around the room with the hallucination devices so that they look like terrifying nightmarish versions of the animatronics. And this leads us into the gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, where we see Michael in his bedroom defending himself from these terrifying monsters. In the year 1985, so roughly a year or two after Charlie's murder, William, whether it's because he wanted to further experiment and study possession, or he just wanted to ruin the reputation of Freddy's to continue getting revenge on Henry for kicking him out, decided that he's going to murder more children. So one day, William sneaks into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and puts on the spring Bonnie suit, which was being stored in a back room to disguise himself as a mascot. He then gained the trust of 5 children at Freddy's, and he lured them one by one to a back room where he murdered them. First, he lured a girl named Susie by telling her that her dog, who died recently, was alive in the back room. He then lured the 4 others, whose names were Gabriel, Jeremy, Fritz, and Cassidy. Now, William couldn't just leave the bodies in the room, otherwise he would be caught. He needed to hide them, so William hid their bodies in the animatronic suits. So he stuffed Gabriel's body into Freddy, Jeremy's into Bonnie, Susie's into Chica, and Fritz's into Foxy. But what about Cassidy's body? Well, the only other suit that was there was the Fredbear suit, so William stuffed Cassidy's body into Fredbear. The children were later reported missing and a police investigation began, and this event was dubbed the Missing Children's Incident. Shortly after the investigation began, William was arrested when police discovered security footage of William wearing the spring Bonnie suit leading the children to the back room. However, he was released shortly after because investigators couldn't prove that William was the one wearing the suit, and they also could not find the bodies of the children. Somehow, they didn't notice the reeking animatronics with bodies in them, but whatever. Eventually, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was closed down due to health concerns from parents when they saw what appeared to be blood and mucus dripping from the animatronic's eyes and mouths. I think we all know why that's the case. And things were quiet for 2 years after that. As we see in a minigame from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, after William murders the children, the puppet possessed by Charlie finds the dead kids, and she gives life to them, and they possess their respective suits. So Gabriel's spirit possesses Freddy, Jeremy's possesses Bonnie, Susie's possesses Chica, Fritz's possesses Foxy, and Cassidy's possesses Fredbear. Now hold on, isn't Fredbear already possessed by Evan's spirit? Well, that's the thing. Unlike all the other animatronics in the series who are possessed by the spirit of one child, Fredbear is possessed by 2 spirits, the spirit of Evan and the spirit of Cassidy. In the year 1987, so roughly 2 years after the Missing Children's incident and the closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Henry decides to reopen, but he could not let another incident happen again, especially with William still out there doing whatever. So Henry invents a new line of advanced animatronics called the toy animatronics. These animatronics were equipped with a facial recognition system connected to a criminal database so they could protect children from any potential predators.
They've spent a small fortune on these new animatronics. Facial recognition, advanced mobility, they even let them walk around during the day. But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database so they can detect a predator a mile away.
With this new plan, Henry opens the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. All of the original animatronics, which are old and withered at this point, the ones that are possessed, are moved to the new location where they're used for salvaging parts. The puppet was also brought to the new location and was placed next to the prize counter. Now, William saw that a new location had opened, and whether it's because he wanted to continue experimenting with possession, or he just wanted to continue getting back at Henry, he decided that he was going to murder even more children. William was able to get a day guard position at the place without being caught, and he was able to avoid the animatronics and their facial recognition systems. And just like last time, he put on the Spring Bonnie suit, and at the right moment, he murdered 5 more children. But as William did so, as we see in a Five Nights at Freddy's 2 minigame called Save Them, the withered animatronics, led by the puppet, attempted to stop him. However, they were too late, and he overpowered them. This leads us to the main gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, where we play as a night guard by the name of Jeremy Fitzgerald, and we see both the withered and toy animatronics showing strange, hostile behavior towards him. On the 4th night, we learn that there is an investigation going on, clearly as a response to William's latest kill spree.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days, I don't know.
We also learn that someone may have tampered with the toy animatronics' facial recognition systems, and the animatronics begin to act strangely during the day. Around kids, they function normally, but around adults, they give off a lifeless stare. They especially act aggressive towards staff.
Just as a side note though, try to avoid eye contact with any of the animatronic side if you can. Someone may have tampered with their facial recognition systems, we're not sure. But the characters have been acting very unusual, almost aggressive towards the staff. They interact with the kids just fine, but when they encounter an adult, they just
I believe this is because the puppet was manipulating the toy animatronics. I mean, after all, if the puppet can bring life to the animatronics, then what's to say that she can't manipulate their facial recognition systems in some way? This would explain their strange hostile behavior, and especially why they are attacking Jeremy. During William's latest kill spree, as we see in the minigame, William was wearing a security uniform, which Jeremy would also be wearing during his shifts. So the puppet could have made it to where they would attack anyone wearing a security guard uniform. We also learned that the building is placed on lockdown and that no one is allowed in or out, especially previous employees.
From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employees.
On the 6th night, we learned that the place is closed down and that there will be a birthday party the next day, and that Jeremy will be placed on the day shift to make sure that the animatronics don't hurt anyone.
What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone.
After the 6th night, we learned that the place is closing down and that the toy animatronics are set to be scrapped, while the original animatronics will be kept in case Fazbear Entertainment decided to reopen. Now, this wasn't because of William's latest kill spree, it was because of an incident known as the Bite of 87. As far as I'm aware, this incident is only mentioned once in the whole series and is never elaborated on. But from what I can gather, while Jeremy was keeping an eye on the birthday party mentioned on night 6, Jeremy got a little too close to the animatronics and suddenly, one of them launched at him and bit off his frontal lobe, and this is what causes the restaurant to shut down.
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day, too. But then there was the Bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe,
After you beat night 6, you get the option to play for a 7th night. After you beat night 7, you discover that you are playing as a person named Fritz Smith and that you've been fired for tampering with the animatronics and odor. For reasons I'll get to later, I believe Fritz Smith is an alias for Michael Afton. I believe he took the job after Jeremy was transferred because he's trying to figure out what's going on and started tampering with the animatronics to see why they were acting so strange and hostile, but as we see, he was caught and fired for doing so. A couple of years after the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 in the year 1993, Henry decides to reopen yet again. So the original animatronics are remodeled and brought to the new location, and a new night guard by the name of Mike Schmidt is hired to work the night shift. Now, just like Fritz Smith, I also believe that Mike Schmidt is an alias for Michael Afton. Now, speaking of aliases, how do we know that Fritz Smith and Mike Schmidt are aliases for Michael Afton? Well, there's two reasons. The first reason is that Fritz Smith and Mike Schmidt are most definitely the same person since they are fired for the same reasons, namely tampering with the animatronics and odor. The second reason is that there is a book called the Survival Logbook, which is confirmed to be Mike Schmidt's security logbook from when he was working at the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 location. And in the pages of that book, there are many indicators that indicate that Mike Schmidt is indeed Michael Afton. In the gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, we see the animatronics attempting to get into the office to harm Michael, just like in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Now, when you play Five Nights at Freddy's 1, there is a very small chance that the Fredbear suit, also known as Golden Freddy, will appear in the office, and when this happens, the words "It's me" begin flashing on the screen. Knowing that we are playing as Michael Afton and that his brother is one of the spirits possessing Golden Freddy, this is probably Evan attempting to communicate with Michael. And as we see in the survival logbook, the spirits inside of Golden Freddy were able to communicate with Michael through the pages of the book. And after we beat Night 7, we learn that Michael is once again fired for tampering with the animatronics and odor. I believe what happened was that Michael was able to figure out what the deal was with the animatronics, that they are possessed by the children's souls, and especially that Golden Freddy was possessed by his brother. Realizing this, he started tampering with the animatronics to try and figure out what is going on, however, he was caught and fired for doing so. Shortly after this, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed down, and Fazbear Entertainment filed for bankruptcy due to hardly any customers, and everything, including the original animatronics, were left inside to rot. And after this, Henry kinda just disappears from the series for a while. William learned about the closing of Freddy's and that the original animatronics were just left inside to rot, and he realized that this would be the perfect opportunity to experiment with the souls of his victims trapped in them. So for several nights, as we see in the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 minigames, William broke into the abandoned restaurant and lured the animatronics towards a back room where he then ambushed and destroyed them one by one. William then took their endoskeletons to his underground bunker and left their shells in the building. Now, while it's somewhat hinted in the games, it's implied in the books that the souls of the children specifically inhabit and possess the metal endoskeletons of the animatronics, and William theorized that he could somehow transfer their soul energy to other objects to bring those ones to life. Now, without going into too much detail, William tries this by melting down their endoskeletons into a pool of molten metal, essentially turning them into a pool of molten soul juice, which he then injects into the Funtime animatronics, and they become possessed. This causes the Funtime animatronics to become extremely hostile, so much so that William had to install electric shockers to zap them to keep them in a calm state, as hinted in Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. After this, William one stormy night goes back to the abandoned Freddy's to find anything else that might be possessed, but instead he encounters something else. As we see in the minigames from Five Nights at Freddy's 3, the spirits of the children manifest and they corner William in the back room. One spirit, who I believe is the spirit of Cassidy, begins to approach and chase William, who is terrified and backs off. Now, it just so happens that the spring Bonnie suit is also inside the back room. And for some reason, I guess William thought that if he put the suit on, the spirits would be unable to harm him. So being desperate, William ran over to the suit and put it on, and sure enough, the spirits stopped chasing him. He begins to laugh at them, but all of a sudden, a spring lock failure occurs. The water leaking through the decaying ceiling splashed onto the suit and loosened the spring locks. William falls against the wall as his whole body is impaled by the animatronic parts inside the suit, and he sat in a pool of his own blood. We later learned that the room was boarded up and sealed. I think what happened was that Henry discovered William in the room and decided to just leave him in there, since he knew William was the one responsible for everything, and it would be for the best. So William's body was locked up in the room and would remain there for a long time. But William did not die. Instead, his soul now possessed the spring Bonnie suit containing his corpse. With the disappearance of William, Michael decided to investigate what William was doing, and he discovered a secret industrial elevator that led down to William's secret underground facility below his home. Here, Michael discovered the Funtime animatronics and that they were possessed, especially Baby, who he discovered was possessed by his sister Elizabeth, and this leads us to the events of Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. All of the Funtime animatronics attempted to kill Michael, except for Circus Baby, who guided him through the facility. Baby and the rest of the Funtime animatronics were trapped in this place, and they wanted to escape, so they decided to trick Michael into helping them. They did this by leading Michael into a room called the Scooping Room, which contained a machine called the Scooper. The Scooper is a machine that removes the endoskeleton from an animatronic, leaving only the shell. And scattered across the floor are the shells of the Funtime animatronics. All of the Funtime animatronics, including Baby, had their endoskeletons removed by the Scooper, and all of them merged themselves together into a single amalgamation known as Ennard. Baby then begins telling Michael that if they looked like him, they would be able to escape.
There's nowhere for us to hide here. There is nowhere to go when we look like this. But if we looked like you, then we could hide. If we looked like you, then we would have somewhere to go. The Scooper only hurts for a moment.
Then there was a loud beeping sound, and suddenly the large Scooper arm in front of him launches at him and rips out his insides, leaving only his skin. Ennard then climbs into Michael's skin and wears it as a skin suit as a disguise to escape. As we see in the sister location minigames, Ennard is successfully able to get outside without anybody noticing for the first couple of days. However, that would not last long. Over time, Michael's skin begins to decay and people begin to notice and become afraid, as we can see onlookers hiding from him. Eventually, Michael's skin becomes so decayed to the point that he is a literal purple man. The entered amalgamation realizes that their cover was blown, so they ejected from Michael and entered the sewers, and Michael's corpse just collapses to the ground. Now, Michael should be dead, but suddenly he stands up. Despite having all of his innards ripped out and essentially being a hollow skin sack, Michael is still alive. It turns out that the scooper was not just a machine that removes animatronic endoskeletons. In Five Nights at Freddy's 6, we find blueprints for the scooper that reveals that it contained and injected soul energy. Michael was alive because he had been injected with a piece of the souls of the children. Michael now knew the truth about everything and decided that he was going to fix his father's wrongdoings.
Father, it's me, Michael. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
This would lead Michael on a quest to find his father that would last for almost 30 years. So yeah, there is a 30-year period between the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and the next game in the series. During this 30-year period, the events of Sister Location take place, after which Michael begins looking for his father, Ennard is roaming around the sewers doing whatever, William is trapped inside the back room, and the puppet is also out there doing whatever. Roughly 30 years later, everything that we have discussed so far has become a local urban legend, so a local amusement park decided to capitalize off of this by building a haunted house-style attraction called Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction. And Michael was hired for the role of night guard. He wasn't an actual night guard, he was just an actor for the attraction. And this leads us to the gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 3. On the first night, one of the people working on the attraction, known as Phone Dude, tells Michael on the phone about everything that they have accomplished so far and what they plan on doing next.
We found some great new relics over the weekend, and we're out tracking down a new lead right now. Now let me tell you about what's new. We found another set of drawings, always nice, and a foxy head, which we think could be authentic. Then again, it might just be another crappy cosplay. We're trying to track down a good lead right now. Some guy who helped design one of the buildings says it was like an extra room that got boarded up, or something like that. So we're gonna take a peek and see what we can find.
Phone Dude mentions that a person who designed one of the restaurants told them about an extra room that got boarded up, and that they'll be breaking into that room to see what they could find. On night 2, Phone Dude tells us that they have found something and they brought it to the attraction.
You're not gonna believe this. We found one. A real one. Gotta go, man. Well look, it's in there somewhere. I'm sure you'll see it. Okay, I'll leave you with some of this great audio that I found. Talk to you later, man.
It turns out that the boarded up room that they broke into was the same boarded up room that William Afton was left in after the spring locks wrecked him, and the thing that they brought back to the attraction was the spring Bonnie suit with William Afton's corpse inside. And as we see in the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 gameplay, William Afton, now referred to as Springtrap, is now roaming the building and attempting to kill Michael. But not only that, Michael begins to experience terrifying hallucinations of previous characters in the series. After beating the game, we see a newspaper clipping saying that Fazbear's Fright has burned down. This was obviously caused by Michael attempting to finish off his father. However, William is still alive, as we see in the final cutscene from Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location, where we see him emerge from the burnt down Fazbear's Fright. So now William is roaming around doing who knows what. Roughly a year after the burning of Fazbear's Fright, a new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza place opens, and Michael applies and gets a job there. Now, Fazbear Entertainment has been out of business for almost 30 years now, so how could this be possible? Well, it turns out, the person who opened this place was none other than Henry Emily. Yes, Henry Emily is back. Henry at some point figured out the truth about everything, that the animatronics were possessed by the children's souls, and especially that the puppet was possessed by the soul of his own daughter, and he decided that he was going to do something about it.
It's only now that I understand the depth of the depravity of this creature, this monster that I unwillingly helped to create. As if what he had already done wasn't enough. He found a new way to desecrate, to humiliate, to destroy. As if the suffering wasn't enough, the loss of innocence, the loss of everything to so many people. Small souls trapped in prisons of my making, now set to new purpose, and used in ways I never thought imaginable. He lured them all back to a familiar place, back with familiar tricks. He brought them all together. Are they still aware? I hope not. It keeps me awake at night. I could make myself sleep. But not yet. Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this. He set some kind of trap. I don't know what it was, but he led them there again. He overpowered them again, and he robbed them of the only thing that they had again. I don't know how those tiny breaths of life came to inhabit those machines, but they will never find rest now, not like this. I have to call them all back, all of them, together in one place.
Henry's plan is to lure all of the animatronics possessed by spirits to this place so he could end this once and for all. So this pizzeria is not just a pizzeria, it's a trap. To lure all of the remaining animatronics to this place, Henry builds these rover-looking robots called RASCs, or RASCs, which from what I understand are basically designed to roam outside around the pizzeria while emitting the sounds of children to lure the remaining animatronics. However, there was one that Henry knew wouldn't fall for this, the puppet possessed by his daughter. So he built a special animatronic called Lefty to capture and contain the puppet. For 5 days, we play as Michael Afton doing his daily tasks, and when night comes, he checks the back alley, and if he finds one of the animatronics, he brings them into a special room where he performs maintenance checks on them, and when finished, they are brought into the main building. On the first night, he finds the Innard Amalgamation, now taking the form of Molten Freddy. On the second night, he finds his father, William. On the third night, he finds Baby, who again is possessed by his sister. It turns out that sometime during the 30-year period, Baby got into a fight with the rest of the spirits in Innard, and they all kicked her out and she was left to fend for herself. And on the fourth night, he finds the puppet captured by the Lefty animatronic. Now in the game you have the option to throw any of them back out into the alley. However, in order to get the true or canon ending, you must bring all of them inside. By the fifth night, all of the animatronics containing spirits are inside the building. After Michael completed his task for the day, Baby began to speak to him from the darkness. The things that she says implies that she and the others are up to no good.
You played right into our hands. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place. Just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place. Just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do. And be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch. Listen. And be full.
Then suddenly, Henry cuts her off.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit. A maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
Henry burns the place down, and everyone inside perishes in the flames. Now, that seems like the end of the story, but there's still one more game we gotta cover, Ultimate Custom Night. At first, it seems that this is just a bonus game where you can choose different characters from the series to battle. However, as you play it, it becomes clear that this is what takes place after Henry burnt down the place. First off, every time an animatronic kills you, you will get a threatening message from that specific animatronic directed at you.
We know who our friends are, and you are not one of them.
I recognize you, but I'm not afraid of you. Not anymore.
I am the fearful reflection of what you have created.
And every once in a while, they will mention someone simply referred to as the one you should not have killed.
I am remade, but not by you, by the one you should not have killed. Greetings from the fire, and from the one you should not have killed.
Second, one of the characters you can select is a character by the name of Old Man Consequences. If you only select him and set his difficulty to 1 and complete his minigame when it pops up, you will be transported to a secret area where you control a figure that looks like Fredbear. When you go to Old Man Consequences, who is sitting by the lake with a fishing rod, he will tell you to leave the demon to his demons and to rest your own soul. All of this implies that we are playing as William Afton in his own personal hell, which is being orchestrated by one of the spirits in Golden Freddy. Which spirit exactly? Well, it can't be Evan, William's youngest son, since William didn't kill him, so it must be Cassidy who's doing this. While everyone has seemingly moved on, Cassidy refused to do so. It seems that she had developed a hatred for William, and she wanted to make him suffer for killing her. And despite Old Man Consequences, whoever that is, trying to tell Cassidy to move on and rest, Cassidy refused to do so. In the final cutscene of Ultimate Custom Night, we see Golden Freddy twitching in the darkness, showing that Cassidy refuses to move on and will continue to torment William for a long time until she found satisfaction. And that, my friends, is the story of Five Nights at Freddy's. Almost. I'm sure most of y'all are aware that there are more games after Ultimate Custom Night. Help Wanted, Security Breach, Ruin, and now Help Wanted 2. However, I'm not really a fan, nor do I like the lore of those games, and how they are trying to continue the story after Ultimate Custom Night. So I just decided I'm not going to cover them in this video. So, that is the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's explained. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to drop a like, and if you're new to the channel, then make sure to consider subscribing, and I will see y'all later. Peace out.